Hey guys, today I want to share with you the similarities and the differences of working in the US and in Canada. So just to give you some context of what I'm going to talk about today, at age 23, I went to the States to go to graduate school. I studied accountancy and I got my degree as an international student, and then I started to working as an accountant. I also got married and had a family in the States before I moved to Canada. So I have studied and lived and worked in the US for about 10 years before I moved to Canada. And I've been living in Canada for about 7 years now. So I definitely, over the years, have a good sense of the differences between the US and Canada. So that's what I'm going to share with you today. And also, I've been working as an accountant progressively since I graduated in the States. But what I'm talking about today apply to other professions as well. So it's not just for accountants. So let's first talk about the similarities of working in the US and in Canada. The first similarity that I want to talk about between working in US and Canada is that both countries, obviously they speak English. So as long as you are comfortable communicating in English, you will have no problem working in both countries. Obviously, depending on the specific locations that you live, there may be a second language that they speak. Like in US is Spanish and Canada is French. And there are some people who communicate in those languages, but English is the first language across the board. So that's the main language for communication. So in a workplace, most people speak English, and that's just the general communication language in the workplace. The second similarity is that employment structure and company structures are pretty similar, almost exactly the same. So the way that people find jobs are very, very similar. And when you get into an actual company to work, the hierarchy structure are also very similar. Most people fresh grad out of school, they will start with the lower position and gradually work their way up, or they jump around, go to different companies and get promotions and get higher pays, things like that. You get the idea. So overall, working in Canada and in US, the way that people get into work are pretty similar. The third similarities is that specifically to an accounting profession, if you study accounting in the US, you can pretty much work in Canada as an accountant as well, because the GAAP practice is pretty much the same. The way the company handles accounting is pretty much the same way that they do in Canada. There's no significant differences between US companies and Canadian companies, how they handle their financials. So when I was in the US, I passed the CPA exam, got my CPA registration in the US. And when I moved to Canada, I was able to transfer my CPA credentials to Canada and get a CPA registration in Canada, because the Canadian CPA Association do accept credentials coming from the US. I'm not exactly sure if the US CPA Association would accept credentials from Canada. I'm not exactly sure, but I know that if you get your CPA in the US, you are able to transfer to Canada. Overall, the GAAP practice is pretty much the same. And also because a lot of companies now do follow IFRS. So a lot of company, especially bigger company, IFRS is what they follow. So most company will follow IFRS anyways. The next similarity is that when you work in the US and Canada, for most professions, the career path for individuals are similar in different majors. So it doesn't matter if you are an engineer or an accountant. For accountants specifically, you follow a similar path when you are in the US or in Canada. You can do public accounting, or you can enter a regular company to start as a more entry-level accounting position and grow your way up. So the career path for the US and Canada would be quite similar. There's obviously other options for any professions. You can become a freelancer, or you can become a contractor, or you can start your own company as well. So it's very flexible, but at the same time, if you work in a regular company, it follows a similar path for most professions. Now let's talk about the differences. In my opinion, In the US, the working environment generally feels more laid back. Obviously, companies are still competitive. They still want to grow and still have a lot of competitiveness in the industry. But within a work environment, I generally feel people are more laid back, more friendly. They are less intense, in my opinion. Also in the US, especially smaller companies, they tend to be more cutthroat. Upper management can pull you tight a little bit more compared to Canada. Canada in general feels more relaxing environment, in my opinion. The second difference is that in the same position, I'm mostly talking about professional, like accounting, in the same level of position, the base compensation in the US is generally higher than in Canada. So say me, I'm a financial controller in my current company. If I had the same position in the US right now, I would probably be paid about 30% more than what I'm getting paid here in Canada. Obviously, based on the companies that you work for, there are some companies generally pay higher in the market. Some companies generally pay lower in the market. I'm just saying that in average, the base compensation is a bit higher in the US. With that said, does it mean that you will generally get more money in the bank in the US than in Canada? Not necessarily, which I will address in a little bit. The third difference that I noticed working in the US and in Canada is that Canadian companies generally have more family-friendly environment, and Canadian companies in general are more openly supporting employees with their family matters. So they encourage you to take care of family before taking care of work. That doesn't mean that the work is not busy at all. They don't want you to work. But if there's anything happen to your family, they will support you managing your family matter first before work. In the US, my generally feeling is that most companies are not as family friendly. And even there are companies that are family friendly, they don't really openly say that. They don't express their caring. One of the examples that I can give you is that in the US, when I was pregnant and had my baby, I actually switched one job to another. So one of the jobs was completely not family friendly. I had to go into a closet, put a sticky note at the door in order to hide in it to pump. But then when I moved the other company, which is a bigger company, they actually have a mother's room for mothers who has to pump, and you can go in there. They give you a fridge and everything. It's generally more family friendly, but nobody really in the environment talks about supporting new mothers, or there's no expression of supporting you as a mother, that kind of thing. So they don't, even if they may be supportive, they don't say it out loud. So the general feeling is that you are on your own most of the time. There's not a lot of support system in the workplace. But in Canada, it's known to support new mothers, and families, companies generally have a very friendly environment, and they will openly address, like, welcome new mothers, support new mothers. People are more friendly and supportive with each other. So that's just a feeling that I have when I work in the US and in Canada. The fourth difference I notice between working in US and Canada is that Canadian companies have a little bit better benefits than in the US in general. You know, a lot of people talk about how Canada has universal health system. So that is one big plus for me, for people who have a family, because universal health system means that the government covers a certain part of health cost. So say they cover your annual well check at your family doctor. They cover annual eye check for your kids. So those you don't have to pay anything. And also if you are admitted to a hospital, you don't have to pay anything. Everything is covered in the government health system. But in the US, there's nothing like that. So unless you have a regular job that the company provides health benefits, health insurance. If you go to the hospital, it's going to be very expensive. Another thing is that in the US, even if your employer provides health benefits, the premiums of the health benefit, as far as when I was working in the US, your health insurance premium is deducted from your paycheck. So at the end of the day, you might get a better rate, but you're still paying for your health insurance. But in Canada, a lot of companies actually pay the full premium of health insurance benefits to the employees. So that's the part where I mentioned, even though US have higher base salary, at the end of the day, do you actually get more money in the bank? Not necessarily. It really depends on how the benefit insurance is structured in the company and how they're deducting the premium from your paycheck. So it really depends on the company and the position. And in terms of health benefit for new mothers, you probably heard of that. In Canada, new mother has 12 to 18 months of paid maternity leave. And in the US, it's maximum like 12 weeks. That's a huge difference between the country. Also in the US, if you have a baby and go on maternity leave, your maternity leave is unpaid by the company, but you can claim short-term disability for a maximum of 12 weeks. After that, you're on your own. In Canada, maternity leave is also unpaid by the company, but the government do have employment insurance benefits that can pay you up to 18 months. So you can stay at home with your baby for up to 18 months with government benefits, so you don't have to worry about not having money to pay for food or formulas. So that's like a biggest difference for women and for new mothers, in my opinion. The fifth difference I noticed working in the US and Canada is that the general cost of living in the US is a lot lower than Canada. I live in the Greater Toronto area, and the living cost in this area is extremely high. It's very, very high. A lot of people, if they are single and working one job, they can hardly afford rent, not to mention buying a house. But in general, in the US, I guess depending on where you live, when I was living in Indiana at the time and work in Chicago, and the living cost at the time is very manageable. And if you have double income too, it actually feels a lot easier than living in Canada. It can be very difficult in Canada because everything is so expensive right now. So these are the 5 similarities and 5 differences that I noticed while working in the US and in Canada. Do I think US is better or Canada is better? It really depends. I think if you don't have a family, don't have kids, you're single, or you are just fresh out of school, working in the US is a good training environment because it's more competitive, people are more ambitious, and it's easier to go by. The living cost is lower, and it's generally a better environment for younger individuals. But if you are a little bit older, like in my age, or you have family, you have kids, and you just want to have a more family-friendly environment, and you want to be more relaxed and less cutthroat, I think Canada is a great place to work, but really depends on what you're looking for and what you really enjoy in your career. So that's it for my video today. Let me know what you think about these similarities and differences. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, I appreciate it if you can subscribe, and be sure to like this video and comment, and I'll see you in the next video.